everyone.
Hi. So, Marilyn and I were talking how our podcast is evolving and going, and we kind of went back to the beginning. And you know what? This whole scheme of a podcast really started out by, it was her husband. We had talked about that before. Her husband, Steve, had said to her, why don't you do a podcast, right?
Yeah.
But it kind of all started because one night they were watching, I think, a movie or a show or something.
Bachelorette.
Bachelorette. There you go. I love that show too. And they're going to do Bachelor in Paradise again.
Yes,
Woo!
I'm super excited.
We'll have to talk about that one.
Yeah.
But anyway, so anyway, one night they're watching Bachelorette, and you're all into it and seeing who's getting sent home and all that stuff. And she keeps getting texts and phone calls from friends and even her sister. And they're all wanting her dating advice. And actually, and then she's kind of like, texting back and all this.
And I'd be like, hold on.
Yeah, putting it on stop, right?
Hon, could you pause it?
Yeah.
Right? I want to respond. I just want to tell them what I think they should do. And sometimes it would be like, what should I do? So-and-so's here. Or what should I do? This happened. Or what should I say? And I always have advice. Like, I always want to give, like, very heartfelt advice that I would do myself.
Yeah.
So I would just say, like, Steve, could you pause it? I want to respond. Or, hold on, someone's calling. So I would take the phone call. And we're talking, this is, like, later in the evening.
Right, right. And I do think, though, the reason why people are, going to her, because they totally value her opinion on dating advice and, what should I do? What do you think about this situation?
Right, like a diplomatic way to say something.
Exactly, and she's super good at that.
Thank you.
So that is actually what sparked it all, because Steve then said, you should do a podcast.
With, like, dating advice.
And things.
Like how to word things, how to say, what to do, how to act, and so, yeah.
So that just got us into this whole conversation about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you are really good at that. You do give really super good advice and very diplomatic way of saying things. I'm like the kind of person, I just blurt it all out. And sometimes I will say, what would Marilyn do? And I think in my mind, because I know she wouldn't just blurt it all out. She would kind of say it in a softer way or a way that sounds a little nicer.
Yes, I always try to say it, like, gentle on the delivery.
Okay, that's
good.
Yeah.
Like, I always tell my friends, be a little gentler on the delivery. Yeah. Because it's all how you say it.
Very true. Not what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where it could be, like, confrontational or a little less aggressive, maybe a little less insulting, because sometimes when you're dating, you have to say things that aren't always the most pleasant to hear. But you need to be honest, because maybe you're just not feeling a connection, or maybe something they've said or done makes you feel uncomfortable or awkward or whatever. So,
and so we kind of Marilyn had done a little research on certain, little things
concepts,
about dating.
Like dating concepts.
Yeah, and we all know about gaslighting, right? That's gotten kind of really talked about.
Overused.
Yeah, overused.
And honestly, too, it's like, I'll even be watching, like, a reality show, and they'll say, oh, that person totally gaslighted me. And it's definitely being used, like, way too much and in the wrong context. And basically, for those that don't know, maybe we should just kind of give just a simple explanation of gaslighting is a manipulation, convincing a person that their reality is untrue. Right. So they would do things, which could be the sign of a narcissist too, but they would say, like, no, you remember that incorrectly. Where you start thinking, like, oh, something's wrong with me, like, I don't remember correctly, or maybe I misunderstood, when you're not at fault at all.
Right.
And so, like, you'll see, like, on these reality shows, like, oh, they gaslighted me, and it's like, no, they really didn't. Like, that's not what the gaslighting situation was in that particular scenario, you know?
Right.
But the other day, I was listening to the radio, and they started talking about this thing called floodlighting. And I mentioned it to Cynthia, and she was like, what is that? And so, and we want to kind of go through a little bit of these scenarios. And actually, why don't we get to floodlighting next? Should we just give, like, some examples of, like, gaslighting first, and then I'll describe, because You were telling me when I mentioned the whole gaslighting that
Right.
you had a relationship.
Well, and to tell you the truth, back then, it wasn't even a thing. I
No.
didn't even know what gaslighting was.
Yes.
And then when I read about it and hear about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what happened to me in my
Yes.
marriage. Not my marriage now, but for my first husband. And I'm like, wow, that I guess that was something that I did go through, but I didn't know it was a thing.
A thing, yes.
Yeah, kind of like the courtesy flush.
Yes, yes.
I didn't know it was a thing.
Now there's like, I
Now
think
there's names and labels for everything.
yes, that is literally what I was going to say because
Yes.
everything is labeled. Everything
Yeah.
has a description and a meaning and a term, and so I do find all that really fascinating.
It is because you read about these things and you see a name of something you've never heard of,
Yes.
which gaslighting. I'd never heard of floodlighting, and we're going to talk about that.
Yes.
But it was like when I read about gaslighting, I was like, well, my God, I totally went through that. in my
Like
marriage,
years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
And so my experience with that was more of he was a drinker and I'm not, and I just couldn't stand somebody. To this day I can't stand somebody who is drunk. I don't mind if people drink around me. Just because I don't drink doesn't mean they don't have to drink, right? I don't care. But I hate it when people act stupid and drunk. It's a thing for me.
It kind of triggers you.
It does.
Which
it
is
does.
another term that people are using these days.
And I don't know why, to tell you the truth,
Yeah.
but I was raised Mormon. And I never saw my mother or father drunk because they never drank.
Right.
I never saw, we only hung out with Mormons, when,
Right.
I mean, I think all we ever did as a family is go to like 1,000 potlucks,
Exactly.
and nobody had alcohol.
Right.
The only time I didn't hang out with Mormons would be school, right? And
Yeah.
it's not like you're drinking when you're a kid, right? So I was never around that. So I don't know if that has something to do with it, but it does trigger me. So we literally would fight constantly. And I did find out as the years went by that he was an alcoholic. I had no clue in the beginning.
Yeah, because you have no warning signs because you have
No.
no experience.
Yeah, and it wasn't like he was drinking and acting weird or falling down drunk. He was nothing like that.
Right. Like a functioning alcoholic, right?
Completely.
Yeah.
Which I had no clue what that even was.
Totally.
A functioning alcoholic.
Yeah.
And that's what he was. But I could smell it. There would be times he'd come home. I could smell it.
Oh.
He might act a tiny bit different. And I'd be like, you're drinking, No, I'm not. No, I'm not. It's your problem. It's all on you. You have no idea.
Yeah.
And then one time he even came back at me and he goes, it's your problem. You were raised a Mormon. And so that's why you don't like me drinking.
Oh, right.
And I'm like,
Putting it on you.
yes, that is
Exactly.
all my fault. Because
Yes.
we're fighting
Yeah.
again of his drinking, but it's my fault because I was raised Mormon.
Yes, because you don't have a toleration for
Yeah.
the
Which
drinking.
I left the church way back when. I mean, I was probably 16, 17 when I left the church. So, no, I have not been a practicing Mormon. But from the time I was born till the time I was 16 or 17, I was raised Mormon.
Right.
But no, that had nothing to do with it.
Totally.
So, yeah.
But that's him doing the
Oh.
narcissistic spin
Completely.
on your relationship, trying to make it as if you're the
It
one
was
who's at fault.
Yeah, because it was my fault that I didn't tolerate his drinking.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Wow.
every time we got in a fight, it was my fault
Yeah.
because it's my problem that I didn't like his drinking.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I swear that's about one of the bad things. And I never really knew too that drinking had so much to do with other things in their lives, like spending money or bills, and it's just this lying. It's a
interesting.
lying thing. They lie about things they don't even have to lie about.
Right,
It's
because they just
they
feel
lie.
very compelled to
lie.
try to hide the truth and
Yes, about things they don't even have to.
right, just
But-
because their personality is so manipulative that they feel like they have to carry that out through everything. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, but that's probably the only thing really that I dealt personally with. I know there are other people I have heard that they deal with, they're in a fight and the way it's usually the man. I'm sorry to say.
Yes, and
But
honestly,
a lot of times it's the guy. Yeah, and I know
Yes.
there's girls out there too that
Yes.
are going to do it. So I can't say it's always. I guess because I'm a girl, I only had the man,
Yes,
on the
and
other
the
side.
only experiences that I'm familiar with family and friends is the same thing. It was a man.
Yes.
And I did, because I love statistics. I did try to find statistics on it. And
Yeah.
it basically said that gaslighting and even floodlighting is so new of a term that there isn't any studies or research done to see whether it's predominantly men
Or women,
But anyways,
Yeah.
I think these are, and I think too, because mental health is like such a huge thing and it's so important. I think too that in going to therapy or counseling, if people are learning these terms
Right.
to help them understand
That there's a name
Yes.
for this thing I felt
Exactly.
that I didn't even know what it was.
Exactly.
I totally agree
right,
with that.
and
yeah.
understanding and feeling validated
Yeah.
that it really is a thing, you
And
know?
that it wasn't me because I was brought up
Yes.
more, because I honestly thought that.
Yeah,
And there's times where I thought, is it?
exactly.
Is that, am I being
'Cause you do.
unreasonable?
Especially
You
when you
know?
spend so much time with that person.
Right.
You really do start to believe that there is something wrong with
Something
you.
was wrong with
yeah,
me,
maybe my memory.
Making me fight with him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's such a sad manipulation.
I know, right?
Okay.
I know.
So then, as I said, I heard this term floodlighting. I shared it with Cynthia, and then we started doing some research on it. So floodlighting is oversharing and overwhelming the person on a first date or the first few dates with too much personal information too soon to try to build an intimate connection with them sooner than necessary. And so when I first heard it, I was thinking that it was like maybe just as basic or as simple as oversharing, but it's not. And I am I consider myself maybe not an oversharer, but I definitely feel like I'm an open book.
She just talks a lot.
I do.
But I do too.
Yes, but I don't mind. I probably
But
am
it's
willing.
different. It's
yes,
different than talking.
Yes,
Yes.
because I don't mind sharing personal information, but the thing that when her and I did the research on floodlighting, it's not just oversharing about your life.
Right.
It is oversharing like deep personal trauma stories to manipulate the person on the first or second date,
Right.
to get them to feel emotionally or intimately
Like,
connected.
connected, yes.
Yes, almost like in my mind, it makes me feel very sad for that person because I feel like maybe it's coming from a place of needing validation, needing attention, maybe making that person feel sorry for you,
Right.
to want to like go on a second date with you because you've overshared all this and like you've brought them into your circle and now they're going to feel obligated to go on a second date with you.
God, but who would want to make somebody feel that way?
I know.
You know?
And that's what her and I were saying. Like,
Yeah.
we can't wrap our brain around that concept. And I'm very grateful that I don't
Yeah.
have,
That.
some trauma or
Yes.
whatever that, like, caused me to overshare and whatever. Because I do not judge, but I do feel sorry for people in that situation. Because that would be a very sad cycle to get yourself into when
Right.
you're trying to get a connection with somebody based on oversharing.
Yeah,
You
we
know?
were having a hard time with it because we both feel like we've never done that
Yes.
type of thing. I've never felt. I almost, when I was reading it too, it almost felt like they wanted them to feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
Almost to where they wanted a caring feeling. They wanted
Yes.
to bring out this caring feeling for them to, from your, the significant other
compassion.
person, like
Yeah.
caring and compassion.
And I'm
they want to
sorry.
bring all these things, these very personal things that you probably would say maybe after a year.
Yeah.
Not on the first date.
Right. Right.
To make that person feel compelled to feel for you a certain way where, I don't know. It's hard for me to explain this one because I
Yeah.
have not ever felt that way or
No.
ever done that.
Me neither.
So I think that's why it's maybe a little bit hard for us.
Yeah, but I thought if we've never heard of it, then there's
Right.
got to be so many
Other
more
people,
people
yeah.
that haven't heard of it either. And in doing this research, there are so many different types of dating and relationship concepts. And
Oh, gosh, yeah.
one that I had actually shared with a friend of mine is one that they consider love bombing. And this is where you shower the person with affection, attention, compliments, love. And also too, like even just inanimate things, you know,
Yeah.
like spoiling them too much too soon. And I actually had a friend that had reached out to me. She was considering getting back together with an ex-boyfriend who she knew loved her, and she had her reasons for breaking up with him, which weren't anything on the way he. It was just that she felt like maybe they just weren't as compatible as they should be with what they like to do, where they like to go, and things like that. And it was a little deeper than that. And the thing that I started noticing when you're on the outside looking in, you
Much
have
easier.
yes,
See.
you have such a clear view of the situation.
Yes.
And so, and he's such a wonderful guy too, which is so hard because just because someone is a wonderful person doesn't mean they're wonderful for you.
Correct.
And two, just because somebody loves you so much doesn't mean that it is okay to settle for that person because you want to love that person as much
as they love
as
you.
they love
Yes.
you.
And that's hard to find.
It is
very hard to find.
Yes, because isn't it so true that I really liked him and he wasn't into me?
But he wasn't into
yeah.
me.
Or he really liked me.
But I wasn't into him.
Exactly.
Oh, gosh, that's like the way of the world.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things where they say, like, timing is everything.
Yes.
You know, but it is true. Like, it's very hard to find somebody that loves you as much as you love them.
Yeah.
And I swear that those are the relationships that seem to last forever.
Right.
Because there's
if
that.
you can find that.
Exactly. So I had just, you know, she had been sharing all these things that had been going on in the relationship with them, you know, giving things a second try. And I just kind of stood back one day and I was like, I think that you're being love bombed. I don't think it was coming from a place of manipulation as much as it was, I want you to feel safe and I want you to feel loved and I want you to know how much I love you by doing all of these things for you, buying you things and showering you and planning vacations. I mean, yeah.
And looking that far to the future.
Exactly.
Right?
And they
Yeah.
were still just giving things another try.
Right.
So when I said, I really think that you're being love bombed. I think that he's using the fact that you know how much he loves you to kind of manipulate the situation, maybe unknowingly, but it's still happening where you're feeling sucked in.
Right.
And she was just like, I never even like analyzed it that way.
Thought of that.
Exactly. And I told her, you know, we are getting, you know, older and life happens and it's hard to meet new people, but like never settle.
No.
Like maybe when you're 100, you can start thinking, okay.
Maybe when you're 100 in the old folks' home and you're at the locker.
Yes.
And somebody comes up to you and says, "You are beautiful."
Yes, you're playing
You're
bingo
like,
or bunko or whatever. But
I like bingo.
I do too. But I was like, don't sell yourself short.
Yeah,
There's a whole world
I totally agree.
of men out there that
And if you settle for this one, you're going to miss out on this one. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is so true. But if you start looking at it like, what do I really deserve? What do I really want? What's going to last me forever?
Right.
Settling is not going to last you forever.
True.
So
I think it kind of goes both ways, though, too. Because, I mean, I think in the beginning of any relationship, men or women are more apt to buy things. And, you know, I mean, my husband now, John, I mean, when we first started dating, I got flowers every month, right? And
what did your coworker tell you? I thought it was so funny.
Oh, yeah. My coworker, she used to scream from her office every month. I'd get these beautiful flowers, and she'd scream, "Don't ever marry him, because if you marry him, that all stops."
Exactly. I just thought that was so funny. Because it's really true.
It's true.
Yeah. I mean, no offense to our hubbies.
No.
Because they're great guys, but
Yeah.
Steve used to do cute stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, he would buy me little Waterford. I have all these Waterford crystals.
Yes, me too.
Things, yeah, that I got
Totally.
bought for, and all jewelry. I mean,
Yes.
so that was wonderful. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't feel he was love bombing me for
No.
that reason.
Right.
So there is a difference between, buying because you are infatuated or you are really,
Excited.
excited
Yeah.
about this person. You think of them when you're out and you want to buy them something special to give
Yes.
them. So that's different, though.
Yeah.
That's a
Because you
little
can
different.
feel the difference.
Exactly.
You know?
That's what it's like.
Yeah. And yeah, so I feel like you said, like you'll be aware, you know, of whether it's a love bombing or whether they're just excited and they want to do really sweet, generous things for you in the beginning.
Yes.
So we were talking, and we always talk about dating and relationships from the past when we're out and about or running errands or whatever on our adventures.
Or see a cute guy.
Yeah, or a trigger's like, oh, cute guy. Yes, but her and I have these relationships that we had way back that are very similar because sometimes I'll be talking about it and she'll like, yes, I had the same thing happen.
Wow, that totally happened to me too.
Yes,
you know?
yes, totally.
Yes.
And sometimes they'll even say like, you know, did you have that experience with so-and-so? And she'll be like, did you have that experience with so? And I'm like, yes.
And it's weird how when you think back on it too.
Yeah.
Because at the time you don't really notice it. Right?
No.
And when you look back on relationships, I think you really understand them so much more.
Yes, and especially because we're more mature and more experienced.
From things, yes.
Yeah, because the scenario that we're talking about in the relationship was as if they put you on a pedestal, made you feel adored and cherished and loved and safe and beautiful, but then they use it to their advantage and use it as a way to control you and manipulate the way that you live and the way that you think. And so when her and I were talking about that relationship in particular, we realized that it, like she said, it happens so slowly that you don't realize when you're in it because you're so excited, you're so in love. And we say this with no disrespect to the two guys. We don't want them to figure out who they are. No. But no disrespect, and we loved them, and they're great people. But it is the way it is. And so now that we look back on the relationship, you realize that it was all in an effort to try to control you or manipulate.
But in the beginning, I will say that you honestly don't realize it because I think when you're going out with different people, I mean, the goal is to find someone, like you said, who loves you as much as you love them, right? And when you meet someone that you're super excited about, and then all of a sudden, this person is so excited about you, and all they want to do is be with you, right? And but you're excited to be with them too. It's a double way play.
Yes, because you're excited when you're done with the date. You're hoping they're going to say, "Hey, this weekend, you know, there's this, music festival going on. Do you want to go?" And you're just like, "Yes."
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And then there's something else, and then there's something else,
and then there's these constant phone conversation, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, all he wants to do is talk to me."
Yes.
You know, all he wants to do is be with me. You know, everything I did. All of a sudden, he wants to do them with me.
Yes.
And at first, it seems so cool.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh.
He wants to get to know my world.
He wants to meet my friends. He wants to know. But no, in reality, he just wants to be there because he's controlling me.
Yeah.
But you don't notice it in the beginning.
No.
And then he would start saying things like, oh, you know, you don't ever go to a casino without, you know, like, don't ever go to a casino without me.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of a pickup place. And, you know, a lot of guys, they're just there to pick up on girls and all this thing. And I used to go with my girlfriends all the time. And never met a guy at a casino. No, thank you. Right? Never wanted to. No. So, anyway, and he would say things like that so that I wouldn't go, but it didn't all click.
Yeah.
Because we would go together and have a blast.
Right.
We would have so much fun.
And he's making you feel guilty to go to the casino because that's not appropriate behavior for someone that's in a relationship.
Correct. And like when you're in a relationship, you're supposed to do it together.
Yes. And that is not an acceptable place for you to go if you have a boyfriend.
Because you're taken.
Yes. And I experienced that too because I remember the specific day that he told me when he falls in love with the person he's dating, he becomes a very jealous person. And I had never experienced that before. And I thought, oh, that's flattering.
exactly, you're flattered by it.
Totally.
In the beginning.
Yes, because you don't know what it feels like to date a jealous person. And then it was as if he didn't want me going out with my friends anymore. But we were still young. We weren't married.
Right.
All my friends had boyfriends and they were still going out with the girls.
Yeah.
But I was being kind of held back, and I was being kind of sheltered and made to feel very bad that I wanted to spend time with my friends.
Even wanted to
Yes.
go out without him.
Yes, because it was like, why would you want to put yourself in that situation to meet other people when you have a boyfriend? And that wasn't my intention.
Right. No.
My intention was to dance with my friends.
And have a good time with my girlfriend.
Right,
I know, yes.
But then that triggered into, I don't want you to go to the gym alone. And then if you go to the grocery store, don't wear a sundress. Wear jeans and a t-shirt. And it was all so little doses at a time that you don't even realize
and we're talking, we were with these people for years.
Yes.
And I can still remember, I think I even told her about this, is that I was getting belittled because I would put my makeup on and do my hair to go to Walmart. And I would be like, he'd be like, you're like the only person I've ever met in my life who gets ready to go to Walmart.
Right.
And I'd be like, I'm not doing it because I am trying to meet somebody at Walmart.
Exactly.
I'm doing it because this is just what I do.
That's what you do every day.
I get up every day and I put my makeup on and I do my hair.
Yeah, because we always
Unless I'm sick.
Right?
I do
we don't do this for anybody else. We do this for us.
Yeah.
And so, for him to manipulate that and try to turn it around.
And make me a bad person.
Yeah, like making you feel bad because you want to look pretty and you want to feel good about yourself.
Right.
He spins it so that there's some sort of ulterior motive.
Exactly.
And really, it's sadly coming from a place of insecurity, which is funny because, you look at these men and they're like so handsome and so tall and so established in their careers. You don't think there's any way these guys are insecure.
Right.
But that's literally what it stems from.
It is, and I did not learn that for a long time. Yes, that it was all insecurity. All insecurity.
Which is so validating, and so understandable because we're insecure about stuff too.
Oh, I think everybody has some level of insecurity.
But you don't want to project that onto your partner.
No, and I would never want to control my partner.
Yeah.
And I think that's the relationship that I have with my husband now, and the relationship you have with yours, was we got married to men who are so different.
Yes.
And I think that's so attractive, probably because what we went through.
Yeah.
If we had not gone through what we did, it might have not even been a thing.
Right.
But because we had gone through years of living through this, we were so attracted to a guy that said, yeah, go out with your friends.
Yes.
And,
and encouraged it.
Oh, yeah. When I go to Reno with my girlfriends for, 3 nights, my husband's like, have fun.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, my God, that is so refreshing.
It is.
Because even when I was married, I wouldn't say my husband was as bad as the guy I dated, but if I went out with my girlfriends, you paid for it when you got home.
Oh, serious?
Because he would give you the silent treatment.
Oh, my gosh.
He would be mad.
So mature.
Just not mad,
just
or
snarky.
Fun, just totally snarky, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, oh, God, here we go again. That kind of thing. With my husband now, I mean, we don't have that at all.
Totally.
And it's wonderful. But you need to talk about when you started thinking about all this. There's a name for this new thing.
Oh, are we talking about light?
Well, because
you're shining a light on it.
Well, yeah, because the person puts you on a pedestal. You think, oh my God, this person loves me so much.
Oh, I
right?
didn't even get to that because
no, that's what we're talking about.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yes. When her and I started talking about these two relationships that we were commiserating on and that we've learned from and grew from, I said there should be a name for that. And so I just decided to Google to see if this term that I came up with in my head was already used, and it wasn't. So, patent pending, I don't even know what I say at this point in time. I'm going to coin this phrase, and we're going to call it spotlighting. And so, this is putting someone on a pedestal of admiration and love and making that person feel so special.
Yes.
And in the meantime, asserting control and manipulation. So
Yeah.
I was telling that to Cynthia, and I go, you know what? I feel like this scenario, this concept has to have a name. And it didn't. And so
I think spotlighting sounds so much better than gaslighting.
yeah,
You know?
exactly. Well,
But I mean, because it's true. They're putting the
a
spotlight on you.
Yes.
And you are everything.
Yes.
And you are, you know, just the love of my life. I love you so much.
Yes.
And they do all these things to where you are feeling like the most special person
Yes.
in the whole wide world. But little by little, it turns into a control thing.
Yeah.
And pretty soon, it ends up being not good.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
you realize, like, who am I?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not just your other person.
Yeah.
You know?
Because you feel like you're losing a sense of yourself.
Right, because
in the
you're with
relationship.
that person.
Yeah.
You're turning
because,
into that one person.
Exactly. You're losing friends because they don't want you to spend time. Maybe you're getting out of shape because they don't want you to go to the gym. You know, like, I mean, and
fat. Because
right?
you go to the gym.
Exactly.
And they're like, oh, I like that. You're fat,
yes,
right?
Yes, because I remember, you know, it's like when you meet that person, you're dressed a particular way. You're wearing a
Right.
cute little sassy sundress with strappy stiletto sandals, and then all of a sudden, when you leave the house, they're like, "Oh, you're gonna wear that," you know, and they try to put you in like marmy things, you know, like jeans and a t-shirt. And I've never been a jeans and t-shirt
No.
kind of girl. I mean,
You're
jeans, but not a t-shirt.
Right,
and
right.
and that's just I've never been a casual person. I've always dressed up to go to Walmart or grocery shopping or whatever.
Yeah.
And so to have somebody like love me that way,
Right.
but then try to change it, like I said, it's so gradual, and you love this person. You're thinking, this person loves me so much and puts me on such a pedestal, makes me feel so beautiful.
Right.
Lord, there's no way that he would want to change me. There's no way that he would want to manipulate or control the situation, but it just happens.
It does.
And so, you know, for me, it was a realization that I was feeling like, gosh, I'm not even really sure what I like anymore. Like, I don't have my same friends. Like, all my friends were his friends, and we were getting disconnected from my family and my friends, and it just seemed like this was just a cycle. And yeah, I knew it wasn't healthy.
Yes.
And it's like you wish that person the best. Like, I don't have anything negative to say about that person. And I'm such a nice person, like I don't even like talking about this stuff because I would never want to put a negative spin on anybody that I dated, because I truly loved them and I loved them all, you know, but it is what's good for you. And he's better with somebody that's a little more stronger personality, where I had more of a demure personality. And so, you know, just like your ex probably ended up with somebody that was more suitable for him. And this is what you do when you're dating.
Trying to find your person.
Yes, and you learn and you grow. And just like you said, how John was so refreshing, that was literally what I found when I met Steve. And I've mentioned to you guys that I met my husband from his sister. She introduced us together, and I thought Steve was so refreshing.
Oh, I bet.
Like, and I
So
literally
easygoing,
Yes.
not hot-headed, you know, that type of thing.
Totally.
Because you, like you said, you had all these hotheads.
Yeah,
And
most
now
of the guys.
here's a sweet guy.
Yeah, most of the guys that I dated were more like my dad, to be honest. They were a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more, of an alpha. A male, I would say. Steve is a little bit more passive, a little bit more mellow, and to me that was super refreshing. And I knew all the things that had happened in all my relationships. And so when I met Steve, I kind of came with a checklist in my mind of like what I would not settle for and what I wouldn't allow, you know. So I threw it right out there, like, I have a lot of guy friends, are you okay with that? Because if you're not, that's a problem, because I felt like I couldn't have any guy frids in a couple of my relationships. Yeah, and then I didn't want to lose friends because of a guy. Yeah, and it's like, the fact that Steve was okay with that, like, was so refreshing. And he's like, one of my best friends is a girl. And I'm like, that's great. I wanted somebody that, you know, could
and
identify.
understood that.
Yes.
Yeah, because some guys don't understand it. Some guys even say you can't be friends with a guy.
Right.
Just friends. And it's like, yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you
it's
can.
so true. I mean, it's all about boundaries. And it's
Yes.
about trust.
Exactly.
So, yeah, to me, I always thought that was silly. And that's just coming from a place of insecurity.
Right.
You
right.
know?
And I will
And
say,
lack of trust.
Yes. And I will say, too, you know, throughout, like, all relationships everybody has, you need to, you know, you got to learn from them.
Yeah.
I will say something that some people will say, like, I don't want to talk about my past. You know, I wasted all this time.
Yes.
That's no good in my life. I'm not going to even speak about it. It's like, no, that is not correct. You learn from every relationship you were in.
Yeah.
And I know I have. I knew exactly what I didn't want. I knew what I did want.
Right.
And each one you learn from. And so if you take those pieces and then you finally do meet, nobody's perfect. Of
No.
course. Never, ever are you going to
We're
find
not
out.
even perfect.
Oh, gosh, no.
We won't admit it.
You'll
though.
never,
I guess I just did.
never, ever find the perfect person.
Yeah.
You're trying to find that person, though, that meets so much of maybe your beliefs, your
Yeah.
standards, your likes, your dislikes, you know, so many things that you enjoy each other's company, or, you know, you do things together, or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff, but you do have to learn from it.
Yeah.
Not just push it aside.
Yeah.
You know,
For sure.
try to learn from all that.
Yeah.
stuff.
Break your pattern of who you're dating.
Right.
And-
Definitely do that. Try to learn from the last. Why did we break up? What did I
Yeah.
not like about it?
Yeah.
You know?
And like they always say too, sometimes the things that you really loved about that person in the beginning and the things that drive you
Oh my
crazy
gosh.
later on down the road.
That is so true.
Yeah, totally.
And me and you have said this too about our the two past guys, where they we felt when we met them they were so good looking.
Yes.
And you know, like the guy you dream,
So
the dreamy
dreamy.
guy and all this. But in the end, they weren't. And it was
Yeah.
because of all the things we went through. And you
Yeah.
look at them in a whole different light. And it's you know, it is different.
Yeah, and I think too, for them, like in their defense, I guess I'll say, is that they're learning too.
Right.
You know, because
I'm
I mean,
sure they did. They probably learned what not to do in their next relationship.
yes, and that's what I was hoping, you know, would happen. Is
Yeah.
that, you know, I didn't want to break up with them. I wanted to stay with them, but you can only stay so long and expect things to change, and they don't.
They
and then
don't.
you're just a moron.
That's the other
you know,
thing. They don't.
for
They don't
sticking
change.
around. No, but I think too, like, you can learn from how you treated someone in a
Correct.
relationship. And, you know, I felt like I was a really good catch. I mean, I still do. And so I feel like hopefully, you know, when they get out of the situation and they're trying to heal from the breakup, that they go, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't have done things this way. Maybe I shouldn't had, you know, controlled or manipulated the situation or said those things or whatever. Like I would hope that they would learn.
Yes.
Because even I have never been perfect, you know, treating someone, you know, a particular way in a relationship too. And I would be like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to do that again.
Right.
Because that wasn't nice or that hurt that person's feelings.
Right.
So I would imagine that somebody, you know, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes, like they'll say narcissists will never change because
Right.
that is who they are.
That's who they are. That's how they act.
Right? And I don't think I've ever dated a narcissist, so I do feel like as long as, you know, you recognize
Yeah.
what you're doing,
Right.
you're able to change it. I hope. I mean, I'm not a psychologist. I don't know. I'm just going on experience, going on hope, you know?
Yeah, I will say though, you know, we all learn from our mistakes. I mean, I hope that we learn from our mistakes. Not all of us, I guess.
We're just sharing our opinions.
Yeah, totally just our opinion, that's for sure. We're definitely not professionals.
No.
And never claim to be.
No. We have a lot of experience,
Yeah,
but doesn't mean we're professionals.
Exactly. But I will say that I had even said this to my husband. I would have never lasted with him if I was met him in my 20s.
Yes.
Or 30s.
Yes.
I would have never lasted because I had not gone through what I had already gone through.
Exactly.
Throughout a marriage and other relationships that I had.
To appreciate him.
To appreciate
Yeah.
things, yes. And so I learned what to appreciate and what not to appreciate. What seemed like such a big deal in the beginning, looks, right?
Yes.
Always looks was just the main thing.
Yes.
That is it.
Mystery.
Not that I want, I'm not going to have an ugly guy or anything, but you have to be attracted to them. And you can be attracted to them for other things.
Yes. Because sometimes that quality makes them more
attractive.
beautiful.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
More likable.
Yeah.
And
so I will say, you know, if I met my husband, and like you said, it's timing.
Yeah.
If I would have met him, you know, in my 20s or 30s, it would have been a no-go. No
Yeah.
way. And so meeting him later in life was how it worked out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, you know, when you're younger, you're like not really wanting like the nice guy or the guy that's, you know, too easy. You know, it's fun to have a challenge.
Because I would be bored.
Yeah, and I like mystery. And so if someone is a little bit mysterious, that could be attractive, but it could also be a red flag too.
That's
because there's maybe things that they don't want to share about themselves. And
That's
so
very true.
you kind of have to, you know, just dissect everything and, you know, do a balancing act in your mind of like, you know, what you're willing to bend on and what you're not willing to bend on. And I mean, I think set your standards super high. And if you have to make some adjustments, then that's great. But I don't ever wish anybody to settle, and I swear when you're, you know, in your 50s and 60s even, you shouldn't settle.
Gosh, no.
You shouldn't settle when you're in 30s.
Change.
No,
it never changes.
And the funny thing is, I remember when I met Steve, I felt so old. And looking back now, I was so young. Right?
I felt the same way when I met John. It was like, oh my God, I was like ancient, right? It's like, oh my God, I was so young.
I was so young,
yes. So young.
Right. And it's so funny, just your perception of everything.
Yes.
You know?
It's
so
true.
I guess what I want to say, because we're going to wrap up this episode, is that, you know, you're always going to feel like you are getting old and that you need to like settle down with someone. And we're just trying to say like, no, you are young and there is never a good time to settle. Like I said, maybe when you're 100 and you're in the senior care facility and you've got just a handful to choose from. But otherwise, hold out for what you want. Learn from your past relationships.
From your past. I think that's the main thing, is really learn from your past relationships.
And don't think it was a waste of time, like you were saying.
No,
I thought that was
never
such a good point. It's never. The lessons you learned and the bonds that you created and the love that you felt, like it is all totally worthwhile.
I agree.
Okay, well.
So that's our thoughts for today.
Yeah, we're going to wrap it up, guys.
And we'll see you guys